Hi, this is Donny. I'm an environmental educator by training and practice. I administer Denver's Stormwater Education and Outreach program that's part of our MS4 system. So you could say I split my effort and time between the worlds of water engineering and infrastructure and that of teaching and learning, in particular K-12 education. From the former of those worlds, I often hear, I would love to work with students more. Who wouldn't want experiences like these? From left to right, we have third, fourth, and fifth graders from Denver's Math and Science Leadership Academy, marking storm drain inlets in their neighborhood from last October. In the middle, we have third graders giving a community tour of their creek and stormwater infrastructure that is behind their school at Tollgate Elementary. That's from May 2018. And on the right, we have some fifth graders tackling a toxic waste cleanup problem that I gave them at the Youth Water Festival, which was last May 2019. But quality education activities, they don't just happen. Just like construction projects shouldn't just appear in your municipality. They're best when they're well planned, well suited for the setting, have smart objectives, are facilitated skillfully, and are age appropriate. Since coming to Denver's MS4 work in 2011, after being a nonprofit guy my whole career up to that point, the main way that I explain this engineering education dichotomy is in terms of language. Engineering has a professional language all its own, as you well know. Education does as well. If you've ever talked to an educator, you might run into some things that you need an explanation for. You need some translation. A CASFM member who desires to work with a local school group requires you to be sort of bilingual or to find a good translator. I'll say more about my ideas on translators and who those people might be a little later. But first, a few tips about working in educational settings. First, have as much knowledge as you can about the particular group of young people that you're going to be working with. For instance, I know as an educator, I just am not very good with students younger than second grade. I often say the younger they are, the more terrified I am. I'll find another educator to plug into a program with young students, in particular preschool students. Prepare yourself for an environment that might feel a bit chaotic, especially compared to the engineering firms and agency offices that I've visited. Learning environments, classrooms especially, can be high energy, they can be noisy, they can have a lot of moving parts, kids and their stuff going in a lot of different directions. I'm a firm believer that when hands are on, minds are on. I prefer loud, vibrant environments as opposed to a setting that just feels too quiet. That worries me. One way to set yourself up for meaningful time with the students, make the most of the time that you have, is to create beforehand and state up front a learning target. The learning targets give students and you something to aim for in your time together, your work together. For instance, this presentation could have a learning target of, by the end of this session, I will identify 3 new techniques for sharing my knowledge of water infrastructure with K-12 students. That's written as a SMART goal. So it's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's relevant, and it's time-bound. The learning targets in schools I work with are almost always written as I statements, so the student can personify it as something they need to do. Another way, and probably the most important of these tips, is to connect to the bigger picture. Find a hook in their curriculum that allows you to match up with what they're doing in the classroom, be part of something bigger, a part of a bigger unit. In Colorado, that's actually pretty easy with water. Water resources are explicitly mentioned in the Colorado academic standards within earth sciences, within biology, and within social studies. A way to almost automatically connect up with the larger curriculum is to attach what you're doing to the one water concept. That's a big idea, or in Education-ese, a cross-cutting concept. In Denver Public Schools, they use a unit at the 3rd grade level called Water Around the World. It uses the book that's pictured on the left, One Well, The Story of Water on Earth, as their anchor text. It's group read throughout the unit by the classes that do this unit. Early in this book, it states all the water that ever was or ever will be is already here on the planet. That encapsulates the one water big idea. I use that all the time with third grades that I work with doing this unit. First, a step back before we get into the heart of what we want to talk about today, just to give you some overall statistics, the scope and scale of Denver's water education and outreach program. The figures I have are from our 2019 annual report for the MS4, and I distinguish between the education and outreach side of things. Those are two distinct functions to an educator. So first on the education side, and by education, I mean that this was attached to a school setting where students are progressing toward either continuation to the next grade or graduation. So in 2019, we reached 8,495 students, K through 12, through 317 separate lessons and field activities. Examples pictured here from the top include flying a drone to measure the slope of a gymnasium roof. That's part of a multi-year rain garden development at St. Rose of Lima Catholic Academy. These are sixth graders that are working with Kevin Monowek, staff engineer, who's also a certified drone pilot. Moving down, we have some students from the past spring. This was in April during stay at home, who I did some virtual field work with, and then they did a combination literacy and art project of creating some posters with some messages about the storm drains. See, they need just a little bit of help on some synonyms, are and our. Finally, we have from the same school, those students are from Centennial Elementary in Denver, the same school a year before, the same unit when they were able to go out and about. This is a field experience for those third graders happening at the Carson Nature Center in Littleton. They're seeing this wonderful river table that they have at the Nature Center, a demonstration of flooding and ways of flood proofing a waterway. Notice how all of these are not taking place within a classroom. I think that for the work that I do, getting students out of the classroom and experiencing things in the real world is much better. A few examples on the outreach side. And by outreach, I mean non-formal communications that are attached to the agency mission, usually focused on building awareness and have some behavioral change objectives. During 2019, we had contact with 25,833 Denverites through community events. We also distributed 6,087 dog waste bag dispensers, individual, and I'll show you what those look like in just a second. So these examples, again, beginning from the top, we have a neighborhood trash pickup that actually occurred on Leap Day 2020, right before things changed significantly. Down on the left is an example of a community event. This was 2019's Safe Summer Kickoff on Great Outdoors Day in West Denver. And you can see those dog bags hanging from the yellow shorts on the fellow who's climbing the cargo net there. That's what we distribute 6,000 plus of each year. Finally, a piece that we move around the city, mostly in detention ponds, streams, outfalls, such as this one at Bluff Lake Nature Center. And we have some giant straws that are just awareness building pieces. It's being installed by a couple of high school interns in May of 2018. So mostly today, we would like to focus on a project that was actually funded, thank you very much, by a CASFM research grant in 2019. This is involving students, introducing them to trash vaults and thinking about ways of measuring the volume of trash in the vaults. Tip of the hat to Troy Carmann, my co-presenter. Troy magically wrote the proposal, was ready to submit it, and invited me to add my name to it and then help him with the work at the school. So I very much appreciate Troy thinking of me, including me in this, and you're going to hear more about what we did over the past year here in just a second. The trash vaults that we worked with students at are at two Denver public schools, the Bruce Randolph School and Joe Shoemaker School. So Bruce Randolph is a school that opened in 2010. It's in near northeast Denver in the Clayton neighborhood. Enrolls over 750 students in grades 6 through 12. It's a traditional neighborhood school named after Daddy Bruce, who was a barbecue pit master who turned community organizer in that portion of the city, and also I recently learned was caterer to the Broncos. Bruce's student body is 98% children of color, 95% free and reduced lunch qualified, and 73% English language learners. The free and reduced lunch qualified is a proxy for students experiencing poverty. Joe Shoemaker School opened in 2015. It's in southeast Denver, the Hamden Heights neighborhood. Enrolls just under 500 students in 5th grade down through 3-year-olds who are in half-day programs, early childhood education programs at the school. It's an innovation school, which puts it sort of between a traditional school and a charter school, has some autonomy over budget, curriculum, and staffing. The school uses what's called expeditionary learning model, which emphasizes groups of students together going into an examination of a compelling topic in a deep, long-term way. These are called learning expeditions. Examples include the story of the Little Rock Nine, integration in Arkansas in the 1950s, creation and application of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, down to some ones that I'm more familiar with and work with, expeditions for younger students on snakes and frogs and butterflies, and a unit that you saw a little bit about before that focuses on water around the world, and we're able to localize that with some of the work that we do. The trash vaults helped us with that. A little bit more about my connection with Joe Shoemaker School. I served on the committee that wrote the original program of study back in 2014. Have been had a relationship with the school for the last 5 years that they've been open. It's named after Joe Shoemaker, who was a state legislature manager of public works and founder of the Greenway Foundation that's worked to save and improve the South Platte River for the last 40 years. CHU's students are 76% children of color, 67% free and reduced lunch qualified, and 33% English language learners. Couple shots of the locations of the trash vaults that are you can see readily adjacent to easily accessible by the schools, denoted by the stars on these. At Bruce, this is part of the 39th Avenue Greenway project, and at Shoemaker, the vault is part of a regional stormwater facility, the Hamden Heights facility, that includes a 1.5 acre-foot pond and a combination outfall and amphitheater. That area is used by students from the school nearly every day that students are at the school. Yeah, it's a really nice setting. Access to Cherry Creek is readily available. So at both schools, we recruited a teacher and a small group of students to work with us. At Bruce Randolph, this took the form of a November recruiting visit, a December walking tour, a brief January check-in, online Zoom demonstration of the measuring device that you'll see a clip of here in just a second. Then things switched. We had to do a May virtual field work trip to the South Platte River that I filmed and provided to the students. We had great plans. We were going to do that field work in person at the river. The 6th grade students that worked with us were going to do a peer-to-peer presentation. We were going to visit some existing outdoor classrooms, since that's another feature that is there, part of the 39th Avenue Greenway construction that's finishing up this year. And then we were going to build and install the trash device during the current school year, and we hope to still do that. We just have to see how things unfold. So thanks to Vanessa, the 6th grade science teacher that worked with us, and students Alana, Carlo, DeQuarius, Daniel, Angel, and Yahir. Here's a short clip of what that demonstration looked like that Troy did for the students, so you can have a look and feel for what it was. Bruce Randolph, 6th graders. This is Troy Carmann. He's one of the engineers that has been working on the project that we looked at a couple of times, and he's got a demonstration for us today. Great. So we're going to
is our stormwater. Stormwater is usually a little bit dirty. And this coffee mug is a little bit more like our trash bowl. How can we measure the amount of trash that we carry with a measuring stick? Bear with me, this is the real challenging part. Oh, horrible. Oh, God. When we see that measuring stick going down, we can start taking measurements on the volume of trash that's in the bottom. This is where hopefully what we can get going out there is some measuring of the trash in the trash vault once it gets up and running. And you guys can be the front lines of figuring out exactly how much trash is in that vault. Does that make some sense? You guys have any questions on that?
No, but it does make sense. Who's Randall?
So I love that Troy, he kept the concept simple, kept the statement simple. He made it memorable by drinking the stormwater that he created. And then I just love that statement at the end from one of the students that it does make sense. So hats off to Troy for being bilingual in that case. At Joe Shoemaker School, based on existing relationships, we were able to one, have plans that would go a little deeper with the school and do those a little quicker than what we were able to do at Bruce Randolph. So at Joe Shoemaker School, that Water Around the World unit is at the 3rd grade level. I had previously supported that unit with the teachers and students and was able to attach the trash vault and the measuring device to recruiting a small group of students, working with them in the months leading up to that expedition, which was scheduled for March through May 2020, and lay some plans for them to then infuse, do peer-to-peer work back with the larger groups of 3rd graders. So what we were able to do before March's stay-at-home orders was a walking tour with the students. We were able to work with them, well, Troy was able to work with them on looking at engineering drawings and doing some interpretation of those. Troy presented his plans for the trash measuring device and the students gave some feedback on that. Troy did another Zoom mediated measuring device demonstration, and we also worked with the students on some age appropriate math of calculating the volume of the trash vault that exists there at Joe Shoemaker. Want to thank the teacher that worked with us, Ryan. He was one of those, the special kind of staffing that a school like this can have. Ryan is the adventure coordinator and fitness teacher for the schools. He has, during regular times, is outside with groups of students for several hours every day, has the students outside doing exploration, lessons, movement, PE, things like that. Thanks to the students we worked with, Callum, Beckett, Heidi, Yandel, and Orion. We have another clip that we'll share with you that is from what Troy and I did after stay at home with the measuring device installation, just to be able to share that with the students. You'll see it's sped up so that it only takes about a minute. What the video we sent out was about a 5-minute video.
Hello, Trackball Squad, and back to the rest of the Shoemaker 3rd grade crews. Donnie with City and County Engineers back at your school, meeting up with Mr. Troy. Mr. Troy is an engineer who's bringing the parts to install the trash measuring device into the trash vault today. I'm going to videotape him doing that and share with you what that looks like. Now we just need a storm.
That was fun to make, would have been better with the students there. Just so that you know, that video was part of 4 other virtual fieldwork videos that we did for the students. They were able to take the expedition all the way through to what would have been the endpoint at the school, where the students created public service announcements about water conservation. Those were shared through some social media. A couple of other schools in the Expeditionary Learning Network also took part in that. Okay, about those educational translators that I mentioned. We're called environmental educators, or sometimes water educators. And as an organized profession, we have roots that go back to at least the 1800s in nature study, outdoor adventure, especially outdoor adventure writing, natural history, early conservation movements, even scouting and 4-H. But in 1977, those really came together and started to become what is known as environmental education. That term really took hold in 1977. That year in Tbilisi, Georgia, in what was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR, there was a first International Environmental Education Congress that was brought together by the United Nations. The graphic at the top here is from a Soviet newsreel of that gathering. The lasting outcome, lasting impact on the field of environmental education from that gathering was what's called the Tbilisi Doctrine. That piece of writing contains the 3 goals of environmental education that we still use today in talking about the foundations of the field. Those goals are to foster clear awareness and concern about the economic, social, political, and ecological interdependence in urban and rural areas, to provide every person with opportunities to acquire the knowledge, value, attitudes, commitment, and skills needed to protect and improve their environments, and to create new patterns of behavior in individuals, groups, and society as a whole toward the environment. Part of that language thing in environmental education, we have a shorthand of just saying Tbilisi when we mean those goals. In North America, the field's professional organization is the North American Association for Environmental Education. Has about 20,000 members. It's truly tri-national, lots of Mexican and Canadian members. Has an annual conference, works on professional development, networking, standards, and research into the impacts of environmental education. So a lot like most professional organizations, something that stands out with NAAEE to me is that it has 56 affiliate organizations, and those are mostly at the state and provincial level. Colorado has its own organization, logo there in the middle, Colorado Alliance for Environmental Education. Of the 56 affiliates, 13 have developed and implemented professional certification programs. Colorado is one of those. Colorado also has gone the extra step, along with only 2 other states, Georgia and Kentucky, of becoming fully accredited, of matching up our certification program with everything that is stated in the standards for our field, what's called the Guidelines for Excellence in Environmental Education. I was in the first cohort of Coloradans to get certified in 2008. That was done by a portfolio. Certification here in Colorado is competency-based, meaning that you provide evidence from your career that demonstrates accomplishments in environmental literacy, foundations of environmental education, professional responsibilities, planning and implementation of programming, and learner assessment and program evaluation. Today, there are 138 certified environmental educators from Colorado, about 850 members in CAEE around the state. Those are the folks I encourage you to seek out as translators, potential partners. And finally, when we turn to questions, I got a historical photo to share with you here. This is from the History Colorado archives of early water education. These are some students and teachers at the South Platte River sometime between 1904 and 1909 at the Alameda Bridge that's in Denver now, where I often do programming. So thanks for your attention. Look forward to having some comments and questions now.